Well, folks, I just finished up playing through a Bayonetta Origins, Cereza, and the Lost Demon, and man, I really went into this with low expectations, and for the first, like, I don't know, 1/4 of the game, it wasn't really clicking with me, but after I finished it, I just kind of put my controller down and was like, wow, I really enjoyed that. So let's talk about Bayonetta Origin today, give you my review, give you my thoughts on this Bayonetta spinoff that is one of the major Nintendo releases of the year. Let's get into it. Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games. Today we are reviewing Bayonetta Origins, Cereza, and the Lost Demon. That is a mouthful of a title. So yeah, like I was saying at the top, this game was not really on my radar. Like, it was on my radar because I'm a freaking Nintendo fanboy. But, when they announced it at the Game Awards, I was like, oh, they're just making a spin-off based on a little storybook chapter from Bayonetta 3. And, I love Bayonetta 3. Bayonetta 3, if not for Xenoblade 3, would have been my game of the year last year. But, I don't know, it just wasn't really, like, something I thought I needed from Bayonetta. It was this weird, kind of more lighthearted storybook puzzle game. Like, that storybook chapter in Bayonetta 3 was good, but, it just wasn't something I really thought I would be into as a full game, and especially with the fact that it was not a DLC, it was a full $60 game, retail release, which, as a physical collector, that's kind of cool, because you can have all 4 Bayonetta games now physically. Yeah, I just didn't really have high expectations for it. Platinum is a company or a developer that typically, when they work with Nintendo, they do really good things, but then they have Star Fox Zero and with all their Activision games. But I mean, that was almost a decade ago, right? Like the Turtles in Time and Legend of Korra. But for the most part, recently, Platinum's been on a really good streak. Even Babylon's Fall, which I know people don't like, I did enjoy enough. So Bayonetta Origin, once again, I just went into it with low expectations, and I came out pleasantly surprised. The beginning couple hours were really slow, though. This game has, if you've seen the footage and the trailers, it's going for a storybook vibe. It's I want to say it's more story and character driven than actual Bayonetta games, which is kind of funny. But it's going for the storybook vibe, and everything is voice acted. So when you're setting up the plot and exposition and all that, at the beginning of the game, you're not really doing much for like the first hour and a half, and it just kind of really dragged on for me. That's not to say it was bad. It was just like, I was trying to get myself in that mindset of really being invested in Bayonetta and Treasure's story. So, yeah, the game follows the story of Bayonetta and Treasure trying to help a wolf in the forest. I'll leave it at that, basically. There are, for hardcore Bayonetta fans, some cool things in there, some winks and nods, and there's also an epilogue chapter after you beat the game, which I just finished, and that was really cool. I know not everybody loved the plot of Bayonetta 3, but, kind of bouncing off that with, this is obviously connected to that storybook chapter, bouncing off of that and just getting more Bayonetta, that was cool. Even though I apparently, I don't know what it is with Bayonetta 3. Everybody freaking hates that game story. I thought it was good. I liked it. Don't ask me what Singularity's intentions were, though. I don't know. But yeah, it's a pretty simple, lighthearted plot. You're just going through this forest that's the game's main area, and you're fighting fairies. You're fighting these little fairy woodland creature pixies. Some are designs kind of based on enemies from Bayonetta, but for the most part, it's all like these chibi little rascals, we'll say. And the combat is actually really interesting, and this is another thing that kind of took me a while to get used to. You control both Bayonetta and Cheshire independently. So if you're playing with a pro controller, which you probably should, or in handheld mode, which I played a lot of this game in, Bayonetta you'll control with the left stick, and she cannot attack. She only has a binding magic, and she'll do some other things, like in the overworld while you're doing puzzles. So you can bind enemies and hold them down. For Cheshire, who you're controlling with your right stick, and ZR to come over and attack. It's kind of like Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons if you played that game. I know it's a deep cut probably for a lot of you, but it's like that. So, I feel like the human brain usually isn't made for that kind of gameplay, and it definitely made me question, like, oh, was this game meant to be co-op? Because that would not surprise me if this game was meant to be co-op originally. There's some stuff later on where it's like, okay, obviously this wouldn't work in a co-op setting, but I do kind of wish maybe they had gone that route. This would have been a lot of fun to play with my girlfriend. But yeah, anyway, you're controlling Bayonetta and Cheshire independently of each other with the left and right stick. You can call Cheshire back to Bayonetta, and he'll turn into his little plush form, and that's actually really cool because you can stretch him out with the right stick and hit objects in the overworld, get collectibles, and yeah, I don't know. Once you get used to it, once you get used to the controls, it actually plays pretty well. but it's not the most intuitive at the start. You know, you're calling him back, you're putting him out, you're changing his elemental form. Basically, there's 4 elements that you end up collecting throughout the game. That's kind of like your core plot points as you go through boss fights before him, you know, that kind of thing. And, you know, all that's really cool. This is not going to be your in-depth Bayonetta action game if that's what you're expecting. This is not trying to be a Bayonetta game. This is trying to be a lighthearted, very kid-friendly action game. There are difficulties. I played on a pretty easy difficulty. I think I either played on easy or normal because I didn't want to go into this with any challenge. I'm just going to be completely honest. You know, Bayonetta, that's a little different, even though I'm not good at Bayonetta, like the core series. But with this, I just wanted to sit back, have a cozy time, you know, drinking some hot cocoa, seeing a little pretty Bayonetta storybook game playthrough, and yeah, I mean, it was really enjoyable just from that. Once again, though, I do think maybe playing with my girlfriend would have been more fun if it was actually co-op. So combat is pretty straightforward. Like I said, you're controlling them independently, and you know, Cheshire gets these elements, so you'll have like a water element, and he'll just shoot a beam of water out of his mouth, and certain enemies will have different elemental kind of weaknesses or barriers around them. So certain enemies might have a barrier that's fire and you need to use the water, you know, that kind of thing. It's all very basic stuff, but it plays really well once you learn it and once you get used to the switching and all that. There's also a skill tree, so you can level up and kind of do some basic stuff. Once again, it's nowhere near as complex as Bayonetta. You know, you're not really unlocking like new combos. Like there are some new things you can do and unlock, but for the most part, you're just doing things like, oh, Bayonetta has another binding through her magic. You know, she can bind 2 enemies now. Or, oh, Cheshire can, you know, dash through an enemy or dodge or, you know, that kind of thing. It's all pretty basic stuff or just building upon pre-existing abilities. It's not unlocking, you know, XXXYYY, BBB, you know, that kind of combo stuff from Bayonetta. It's nothing like that. So if that's what you're expecting, don't expect that. Now, outside of the combat, though, there is a big focus on puzzles, and I want to say exploration in this game. The exploration thing, I wasn't really expecting. I really didn't think that was going to be one of this game's main draws, is that it's almost, dare I say the word, it's almost Metroidvania-esque if you choose to play it that way. Now, I didn't. I didn't 100% this game. Once I went through an area, I just kind of kept going. I never really went back. But this game gives you the option to go back and get a bunch of collectibles, get more health, get more of those little Umbran tears, is that what they're called, and the other things for your skill tree. I never really did too much of that. For the most part, I was doing optional content as I went through, but eventually I was like, you know what, I just want to kind of see the story through, about halfway through. But yeah, you unlock a fast travel, basically, and you can just fast travel around, go back through with your new abilities that you get with Cheshire. You can, you know, access new areas and old areas that are completely optional, and there's actually a lot of, you know, exploration there. It's not the most, you know, you're not going to get lost, really. It's all pretty straightforward stuff. The map isn't huge, but it's fun. So it has this interesting thing where it's, you know, it's a pretty linear game. You just follow the wolves' footprints. But if you want to really explore and dive deep into this forest and just find all these collectibles, find all the wisps that you can help out, there's a decent amount of content here. I'd be curious to see how long it takes to actually 100%. I'd imagine probably not too long. I think my playthrough of the game was about 10 hours long. So maybe 15 to 20 hours for 100%, which is, for me, that's good. I don't like when a game stays a little too long in the tooth personally, so that's like perfect for me. So the exploration is fun. I will say, and this is going to kind of bridge the gap into the art style and the graphics, the level design's a little weird in that sometimes it's not very clearly indicated where you can go up. So, for example, to jump up a ledge, there's no jump button in this game. You just kind of push Bayonetta or Cheshire up towards the ledge. And I don't know if it's just me, but because this game has that, you know, very cartoony storybook, watercolory art style, the landscapes are a little hard to, I don't know, it was a little hard for me to figure out where exactly you could go. I eventually kind of learned how the game was working, and eventually I got better at that. But early on, I was like, oh, I can't walk up in this mushroom. Why not? You know, it's that kind of thing. So sometimes the level design was a little weird, but overall it's not really an issue. It's also kind of sometimes feels a little janky because like there's a lot of like slopes and stuff and you're going up hills and very weird. You'll know what I'm talking about if you play it. It's not like a deal breaker or anything. It's just something I kind of noticed. But let's talk about that art style because, oh my goodness. You know, I love, man, I feel like I talk about this in every review. I mentioned this in my Kirby review, mentioned it in Fire Emblem. I love that developers are taking advantage of the Switch's hardware, and by that I mean, you know, the Switch isn't very powerful. So they're making these really unique art styles to make these games pop, make them look good, and this game looks freaking beautiful. There were full disclosure, towards, I think it was the second to last boss fight. There's a lot going on in that boss fight, and there were some pretty bad frame drops. But outside of that, everything was crystal clear, beautiful, and yeah, this really interesting art style where it's not watercolor. Is it watercolor? I don't even know what this is. I don't even know what you call this. It's very unique though. You know, enemies in Cheshire have like other moving patterns within their model. I would love to see like the actual like texture mapping for this game, because it's very, very unique. It really pops, and it was a joy to look at all the way through. In fact, that's one of my favorite parts about the game, and it's a good thing that they did this too, because it's supposed to be a, you know, kind of relaxing story game, storybook inspired game. This game is beautiful to look at, especially I was playing on my OLED TV, my LG C1, but also on the Switch OLED in handheld mode a lot. You know, the darks really jump out. The colors are very vibrant, and this game looks freaking beautiful. The frame rate at the end there, kind of a little wonky, but overall, a very pleasant experience. The final thing I'm going to touch on real quick here is the music. Oh my goodness. I don't know what composers Platinum's got cooking up over there. You know, Bayonetta has good music, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't expecting, you know, I don't go into Bayonetta games expecting, oh man, it's gonna have banger after banger. There are bangers, don't get me wrong, but the music in this game really surprised me. You know, it's a lot different from a normal Bayonetta game. There's a lot of like soft piano notes, almost like a Breath of the Wild ambient music kind of route here, but it really worked, you know, and when you're fighting the bosses and those unique boss themes kick in, it was really good. So overall, maybe cutting this review a little bit short, overall though, I really came away surprised and kind of in love with this game, I think. You know, I think I really did enjoy it that much. And it's just a nice surprise, you know, because going back to it, I was not expecting to like this game that much. You know, I honestly kind of reluctantly bought it because I was like, oh, I'm just going to buy it because it's the first-party Nintendo game. Maybe I'll get to it eventually. No, I freaking love this game. I know Kamiya said that he hopes they can make this a franchise. Hopefully, man. You know, Bayonetta's not an IP that I felt maybe needed a spinoff like this, but now that it's happened, I'm like, okay, give me more. You know, so I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Have you played Bayonetta Origins? And if so, what do you think of it? And if not, why not? Why aren't you playing this fantastic little game? It's a hidden gem. This is like the definition of a hidden gem, because I feel like I have not seen a single person talk about this video game, which is a damn shame, because it's you know, go into it with lower expectations, I say, even though I'm gassing it up right now. It's one of those things, go into it with like pretty temper expectations, and you will probably come out pretty pleasantly surprised. So with that said, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch reviews, coverage, news, all that fun stuff. I have a pickups video coming out soon, maybe yesterday if you're watching this, maybe, I don't know when I'm posting it. Also, a lot of Tears of the Kingdom stuff, so stay tuned for that. And until next time, folks, bye-bye!